All right, here we go on the eve of Chat 70.3.
I was wondering where you're going with that. With the eve, you sound like Hayden on like November 28th. He's like, this is the eve times 23 for Christmas? Yeah, it is. We are Chat 70.3 week, one of our favorite weeks of the year. It is May the 16th, 2024. Welcome aboard, everybody. You're listening to Crushing Iron Podcast, and this is episode 769.
Yep, it is, and we got a good crew. I mean, obviously that was our home base for a while, and we have a good crew. We love that race. I did repost an old preview for everybody's listening pleasure, but it probably says we'll be down there in full force, and we won't be, but it's still a good listen, I'm sure.
It's a great lesson. Yeah. And it's a complex. We're actually going to talk a little bit about it today as a kind of an example for the topic today. But yeah, good luck to everybody down there. Again, it's one of our places that we love, and we were obviously headquarters there for a long period of time. So get out there and enjoy yourself. And, we've got some if you need inside intel, because the rumor is, I know this is a shock to people, but the rumor is, there's a whole lot of panic going on the Chat 70.3 Facebook page.
No,
I know that's startling, and I know that seems that can't be true. Panic, anxiety, not on an Ironman Facebook page. I know what you're thinking, and I know you're probably thinking I'm being a little dramatic. But I had a couple athletes that I coached text earlier this week, and they just said I had to leave. I said, well, yeah, you never should have got in the first place. Like, I get if you want to go in and control and have a little bit of free laughter, but to go in and let it just kind of warp your mind is the whole thing. But luckily, like, we have an athlete, good old Tommy Bonds, who works for the TVA, and he knows the game plan. So, again, just another perk for being a C26 athlete. We have the inside info and all those kind of things. But yeah, exciting week. Hope everybody has a great race. A lot of Morro Bay in California, there's another race. But yeah, busy time of year. There's always races coming up. So again, good luck to everybody racing this weekend, no matter what you're doing. If it's your first time tuning in today, welcome. We appreciate you giving us your time. We know you have quite a lot of options in the triathlon podcast universe and just podcasts in general. Time is valuable, so we appreciate you tuning in today. We cover it all. We do swim, bike, and run specific podcasts. We do race recaps and also a lot of race previews. But for the most part, Mike and I, as coaches, athletes, best friends, we just sit back, relax, have an open, honest discussion about what we're going through in life, not just as human beings, but also as coaches and athletes ourselves. We also talk frequently about what our own athletes are going through. He and I work with a wide range of athletes all across the globe, from beginner level triathletes in the very first 5K or sprint triathlon, all the way up through elite level amateurs trying to get back to world championships and everyone in between from all over the globe. We'll use the feedback loop we have with them and Training Peaks, emails, text messages, and like to drive the discussion today. We also like to utilize our Facebook group, and you can search that, Crushing Iron Group. Answer one simple question. We'll let you right in. Awesome people, fantastic community, amazing resource in a sport that's oftentimes way overcomplicated. See Ironman Facebook groups, and way too confusing. It is a safe, actionable space to get great information from what I would call qualified individuals that are super experienced in all levels of racing and training, to give you actionable advice, hopefully allow you to avoid some of the pitfalls that, listen, we have made along the way, because we've been doing this sport for a very long time. And while we've done it for a long time and worked with hundreds of athletes, I'm still amazed at how much there still is to learn and know and explain, and which is fantastic, because that's why we have the podcast. But go in there, be a participant, don't be a lurker. We don't have an agenda outside of the fact that we want to keep you happy and healthy in your endurance sports journey. And that is a huge part of what we do. And couple housekeeping items, since we never do this, and frankly, you and I have always been terrible about this, but we are getting our e-blasts out with lots of information, free info. So go to our website. Again, our website is c26triathlon.com. Scroll down to the very bottom, sign up for our to be on our email list, get a lot of great info and insights from not just you and I, but all of our amazing coaches, videos, stuff like that. So a lot of great info, and you get a amazing PDF of how not to go swimming, which is very timely, considering the fact that I think last week's two-parter of How to Not Suck. Well, that wasn't How to, it was Mysteries, which I think was perfectly titled by you. So many comments. It's as I kind of said in the intro, there's always something to learn, and swimming is one of those. We had a listener email from like Alaska talking about how difficult it was to pick up swimming later on in life, and I've said this hundreds of times, and I'll say it again. It's like, if I had a swim year on growing up, I don't know that I would have like the resiliency and the commitment and the kind of the stubbornness it takes to get better at swimming, like so many late adult onset swimmers do. So you get that PDF, and also, if you're interested, we just launched a C26 online swim school. You can go to that, go to the coaching tab, scroll down and click on online swim school. I'm only taking 20 this time. We've already got 11 signed up. So if you're interested in that, click on the link on our website and get more information. But listen, if you're tired of being slow and you're not sure what you're doing and you feel like you're not efficient and you just can't figure out, I'm telling you right now, I can change that. There's very few things I'm as confident as I am with swimming. But again, if you're looking for something to get better at and you're frustrated, give it a shot. I promise it'll be worthwhile. Hop in there and you can get better and faster with other people, and you don't have to worry about traveling like you do to to camp, stuff like that. So be part of that. And then also, we don't do this enough, and we should do it more often. As you may or may not know, we added 10 new coaches to our staff early this year, all C26 athletes from before, and they are absolutely crushing it. So if you have been interested in coaching, and maybe it was, finances were the obstacle, whether it was just the timing, or frankly, maybe it was the personality. You didn't really jive with maybe me or with Mike or with somebody else, but they have all different personalities, all different backgrounds, all different experiences, but you get the same philosophy and the same incredible training that we provide. So if you're looking for a coach and it's a great price point, go in there, find the one that's right, that you think it's right for you. And even if you don't know, one of the things that I've spent the last couple of weeks doing as our coaches are getting more and more new athletes is I pair you with the right fit. So you come in, you say you're interested in finding the right coach, you fill out a bunch of information, you name your top three, I read your form, then I pick my top three, and then really I just cross match. So it's kind of like speed dating, but it's for triathlon. So do that, check them out again, and a bunch of awesome people in there and awesome coaches ready to take you to the next level, especially as we kind of get into the meat of the season, which I think it always kind of feels like chat is kind of that. Like, I know it's not the official kickoff, but it kind of feels like the cascade of week in and week out events where you're always tracking somebody, and like, Ironman, Iron Track. It's like a weekly thing now, not just like every few weeks.
Well, yeah, you said it, man. The coaching, I've met every coach, and I've known a lot of them for a long time, and I can vouch for that. They've got a wide range of personalities and skill levels and talents, and it's definitely worth checking it out. But I agree, Chad is, since we lived in Nashville, it was always kind of the first big deal. I mean, it was, after they wiped Rev 3 off the map in Knoxville, then it became that. So for us anyway, I'm sure that obviously different parts of the country, but chat's always a fun one. It's probably one of the biggest, right? 70.3. I mean, I think they're still holding strong around 3,000 plus.
Yeah.
Like
I think they're
back to the old, days.
I think they hold the record for their 2-day event for the most athletes ever to participate. When they did 70.3 Worlds and had the men on one day and the women, I think they hold the record for most athletes in a 2-day span for doing a race.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, they got a great place for it. I was thinking when you were saying that about the Facebook groups and the panic and all that kind of stuff, I thought, we should do a podcast on that. Go do a Q&A from unsolicited Q&As and read go through there and just react to it. You know what I mean?
Like pull it up live and just go back and
just kind of read some of the shit that's going on in there and just talk about it, and then maybe calm some people down, help them get through the worry about the gravel on the corner of St. Andrews.
Did you hear that corner of St. Andrews? They've gone from like regular size gravel to pea gravel, and I really I don't know why they can't change this. I don't know why they have to do this stuff last minute. And now I'm really questioning my cassette choice.
Yeah.
I'm really questioning if I need a different cassette. And I mean, does that change the PSI on my tires? Like, should I go up or down 5 PSI in the front, 5 in the back? Is that going to affect my handling? Should I go regular aero bars, or maybe should I go clip on? I'm really, you know what? I'm just going to go Gator Skins, 28s. And you know what? Screw it. I think I'm going to put my clip-ons on my gravel bike. I feel like that's a good, safe plan, and then we're just going to see what happens.
Yeah, I drove by this guy a week before the race, and he's out wood chipping over there in St. Elmo. He's right by the course, and he's being real sloppy. You know?
Yeah, you're just adding to the now when people get a flat tire,
so
they're going to blame
there might be wood chips.
Hysterical. Oh my gosh. Anyway, on to the topic of today. Yeah, no wood chips. We haven't heard any rumors about gravel. We do have the intel on the swim, but I'm sure it'll be a clean, fast, beautiful day on course. So again, go enjoy yourself. But on the topic of the day, so again, as kind of I said to open, we talk a lot, and we have in the past, about race strategy and how to quantify numbers, right? Like, I think that's where so many athletes, I guess we kind of like tease this, or maybe kind of the preface to this topic was when we covered on Tuesday about how so many athletes train in a controlled environment and have those numbers, and then they take that control, or like, your control group, and you put it out in the wild, and you wonder why things are so different. And while that might seem already like a huge difference, there is a whole different bag of kind of like a checklist you need to go through as golf coach athlete, which I think is the hardest part, but also what coaches go through when they look at mapping out a plan, right? Or a scheduled, kind of like triage for what you want to get from each race that you do over the course of the year. Because, I mean, let's be honest, if you ask any triathlete what their goal is for the race, 99 times out of 100, they're going to say, I really want a PR, or I really want to win my age group, or I really want to qualify for this, or I really want to go, sub this or this. You rarely ever hear athletes say, well, you know what? My goal, my main goal for this year is to do really, really well in this race in November. And so what I want to do is I want to figure out these 1, 2, 3 things from today. And you're like, well, that doesn't make that. Where's the hype in that? Where's the TriCalc usage in that? Like, what do you mean? And so yesterday we did one of our usual Zoom calls for athletes, and I kind of went through all the things that a coach thinks about when they think through, like, what are you trying to get out of a race, and then how do you would even begin to suggest an effort or a heart rate or a power target or a goal for someone during the race. And I had multiple people during the Zoom call, and then a lot of text messages and comments like later on the day. They're like, I had never thought of any of that, because again, as triathletes, all we really think about is, well, 1, ourselves, but 2, time, performance. And to me, that is the ultimate output. That is it. And there are so many things that go into it. So I'll kind of walk through like just a few general things that I went through this call, and then I'll let you obviously weigh in as an accomplished coach and athlete yourselves, and like how you think about things. But the kind of example I gave was, we had athletes do Gulf Coast last week, and so let's take. I'll just use you as an example, right? So I'm coaching Mike Tarrolly, and he's got this specific level of fitness across all 3 disciplines: swim, bike, and run. Right? It's 2 mics, Mike 1, Mike 2. And he's doing Gulf Coast 70 points. So you're not familiar with Gulf Coast. It's right there in the Panhandle, Panama City. Super choppy swim. There was a rip current advisory. So you got a super choppy swim in salt water. You got no wetsuit. Okay. Pancake flat bike course, hot, humid, and then pancake flat run. Okay. So you take Mike 1.0 in that race, and then you take Mike 2.0. That's doing chat 70.3 this weekend. Not as hot, not as humid, and a swim portion that's going to be, in my count, probably at least half. Like we're talking maybe Mike might swim 40 minutes in Gulf Coast and Mike might swim 23 minutes in chat on less effort, right? With a wetsuit. So to most athletes, right, if you're self-coached or if you, when you think you get a plan from a coach, like all you're really thinking is, I'm going to PR the swim. But the cascade of events from the time you immediately start that day is all about, again, what we talk about a lot is energy expenditure. So for, again, Mike 1.0 at Gulf Coast, knowing what we have to have for that swim, even going from non-wetsuit swim to wetsuit swim, there, to me, there's always a change in the watts that I give an athlete for the bike. So again, that's just a small sampling of like what, and because I would say for, you know, Mike 1.0 who's doing Gulf Coast versus Mike 2.0, I'm thinking, all right, well, I can probably give Mike 2.0 in chat a little higher watt target because he's going to be already on course for 12 to 13, maybe less minutes, and having less energy expended in the swim. He can probably push higher. But then then you kind of always go back to, what's the goal for today? What are we trying to figure out? And so the example I gave for these athletes was, let's say you're doing chat 7.3. Let's say you're doing Louisville 7.3. And let's say your A race, your big race for the year is Ironman Florida. Okay. And that's the race you really want to do well. And again, I think all athletes would admit this, is that when you list out a C race or a B race, you're lying. Because all athletes have C races and B races disguised as A races. Very few athletes take a C race or a B race seriously. They always want to do well, and they always want to treat it like an A race. They put all their eggs, and they still want to see their performance goals met. But if your goal is to really, really execute on the best race possible, then you have to work your way and understand the goal is to work our way towards the end goal, the main goal, and what information can we gather, right? So I always recommend starting in the back, work your way backwards from your biggest race year. Then what do you need to know to do well? Do you need to know how hard you can swim and still bike well? Do you need to know that you need to figure out if you want to go easier in your swim? Do you need to figure out if you need to push harder on your bike? Do you want to figure out, like I used an example yesterday, I've had a lot of athletes I work with in the past that I've actually upped their bike power because what we figured out was that, you know, Timmy could bike at 200 watts and run a 140 off the bike, but Timmy could also bike 220 watts and still run 140 off the bike. Right. That's just how they're made, right? They're not a speed demon. They're not going to gain 5 minutes. That's just who they are. They're not a one-trick pony, but that's the name of their game. Then you have other athletes who you remove watts and you get a huge thing. So when you look at racing, and again, you look at energy and you take that into account, there is a lot of play and a lot of experimentation that has to go with the knowledge you want to gain, okay? Because, and again, every athlete, I think, not every athlete, but a lot of athletes think it's cut and dry. It's apples to apples. I have this fitness in these three individual disciplines, and this is what I want to get from it. And couldn't be farther from the truth. Because again, this isn't a 3-discipline sport. This is one sport that includes 3 disciplines. It's not 3 separate disciplines. It's one sport that includes 3. So when you look at your bucket and you look at your bucket of racing, as a coach, I might look at Mike 1.0. Again, this is a great example to use for like a course like chat and versus like I'll use Ironman Chattanooga, downriver stream, a little bit longer bike, but flat, rolling and fast, and hilly run, in Wisconsin, right? Big open water swim, tough swim, hilly rolling bike, technical, not as challenging run, but it comes at the end of doing all those 2 hard things. So 2 polar opposite courses. And I take Mike, and I understand that his fitness level is, we're going to call you Mike 5000, right?
Oh,
it sounds like a pretty sweet like 80s movie, right? Mike 5000 on sale right now at Toys R Us. So you got Mike 5000. 5,000 is his total energy expenditure we have for the day that he can utilize and still be able to function. Well, now as a coach, you look at how can I divvy up that 5,000 and get us the fastest result. Because I think most athletes think, oh, well, a 5,000 units of energy, well, that's going to get me a 10:30 or an 11-hour Ironman, whatever it is. That's not the case. There's 3, 4, 5 different ways you can divvy up those units to get a specific time. We could allocate 400 of those units to the swim and swim pretty chill and save some for the bike. We could up that 400 to 600 units and take some away from the bike, but see how much faster we get. Maybe we get out more in front. Maybe we get out with some stronger cyclists. So now we're in a better group. We can work with and legally with other athletes to save energy. So now we're going to allocate 2,400 right to the bike. So now we got 2,000 left. Then we're going to save those 2,000 units for the run. That's just one. You could also do, I'm going to spend 300 units only on the swim. We're going to go super chill. We're going to go super slow. Something that Sam Long did when he got second place at Singapore. He's a slower swimmer, but he even said, like, I swam extra slow that day on purpose because it was so hot that I didn't want to overheat. And what you see, he climbed his way back from basically from last place to second, and you had people dropping like flies. So this would have been the very similar situation. Now I'm going to spend just 200 units on the swim, and I'm going to bump up to using like 2,800 units on the bike. Now I've got 2,000 units left, so I can scream it on the run. Or what you see a lot of athletes do, I'm going to use 500 units in the swim, 3,500 units on the bike because I'm an overbike, and then see what I can do with 1,000 energy units left on the run. Like that is the complex problem that we have as triathletes in terms of, especially for longer course racing, how we want to allocate those. And then ultimately, as you work your way backwards, you have to figure out, like, again, the goal for the day is to figure out what, right? Two things, effort and execution, right? Are you going to work on fueling? Are you going to work on pacing? Are you going to work on pushing the bike? Are you going to work on a performance-oriented goal, like see if you can run your best half marathon off lower watts? Or is your goal to smash the bike and see what you can hold afterwards? Is the goal to race Ironman watts and see what you can hold afterwards because you've got Ironman at the end of the year? All fueling, I'm going to nail my fueling, right? I'm going to see if I'm taking in too much or too little. All these things, right, as you go into a race, have to be thought about. And the beauty of not having just a performance-oriented goal is that these are things you can control. My goal today is to do this. I can control that. My time will be what it will be. Because, again, you're always about collecting information, right? Because you can't just look at 3 races like your Chat, your Louisville, and your Ironman, and your Ironman Florida. Because at the end of every race, you want to give yourself a book. Right? Here's my experience. Here's what I did pre-race. Here's what I did right before the race started. Here's how I handled the swim. Here's how I handled the bike. And here's how I handled the run. And you want to have actionable information from the athlete, fueling, pacing, power, heart rate, all these things that you can now take, put in your back pocket, and help you kind of read and prepare for Louisville. Then you get a new book and you get all the information per floor. But also, and I'm going to shut up, I swear. But what you see a lot of times, though, is athletes go total maverick. I know it's on the game plan. I know I went way off the rails and I had just totally bonked. I forgot my nutrition. I got this. And I know I didn't pace properly. I didn't sleep well the night before because I was out doing something and I shouldn't have ate this. And I didn't pace right. And I tried something brand new and that didn't work out. Well, so take the full book you would have got and then open up 7 different pages and rip them out and toss them in the trash can. Because you didn't learn anything. All we learned was you can't pace properly. You still don't know how to fuel properly. You don't know how to be patient, and you don't know how to execute. So you already know those things. So you lost this opportunity for information. So again, like there's outside of the normal, I want to go this. There are a million different layers that you have to kind of peel back as a coach. And I think most self-coached athletes really struggle with this to find out the ever-evolving kind of whack-a-mole board that is figuring out the puzzle pieces in the right order, at the right time, with the right effort to give yourself the best race. And it's trial and error, and it takes a lot of trials.
Well, I mean, there's a lot there that, I don't even know exactly what to pick up on, but
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, yeah, the energy distribution, I think, is a huge one. But like, going into these races, I think certain people are different, and sort of like you're talking about, it's kind of, what's going on that day for me. If you're going to have an A, B, and a C race, I think certain people don't, like you're saying, they want to race well every time. And they're going to look for little things along the way. I personally, and we've talked about this, but I usually have a A, B, and C goal in the race. And because, I can go out with this idea that I'm just kind of using this as a warm up race or just something to get my, but if I feel really good, I gotta, like I always tell athletes, take what you got, like if you get out there and, training can be kind of this murky pool of fatigue and not really sure where you're at all the time, but how every day or every once in a while you got a really hard bike, but you just feel it, man. And you can just go lay it down. For whatever reason, that's how the human life cycle or the energy cycle works. And you may have that day on race day. It's like, shit, I'm pushing something that I didn't think I would be pushing, but I feel really good with it. You should know that. You should understand that. That's why I'm a big effort guy. I don't think, like on all my races, even though I wasn't using power meter, I think the only two that I've really overbiked on, to the point where I could feel it on the run and knew I was done was the last two. And the one was the cold day at Wisconsin. It was just a grinder. I just wanted to get done. I was probably pushing too hard for what I had. And then last year when I had that flat and I just tried to make up time, I could literally feel when I got off that I had overbiked. But I think most people would probably have, I don't want to, I mean, this sounds kind of crazy, but I think most people probably would have a hard time overbiking on a 70.3. A lot of people, because I just don't think they're used to, or they're not used to pushing hard enough on the bike in general, because it can feel hard, right? But it's not that it's going to kill you hard. There's a difference. And I talk about listening to your quads a lot with my athletes is, if you're out there and you know that burn, when you start feeling that, don't push that. That's when you back off. So it's like this body limiter that I always try to get people to pay attention to, because, if we got you set up, like you're saying, maybe like your goal is 200 watts, but, or you might feel like 210 is not a big deal that day. You got to just be, I think you got to be able to adjust, like if you get in a swim and you got it, swim, but if you don't have it, you might have to finagle around and kind of figure your way and then kind of loosen up and then just, stay steady like Sam Long on that and just be slow or whatever, take it easy. But some days you might feel good in the swim. And I mean, to me, it's just a weird thing that happens, at least with me, is sometimes I just feel good and I know I can swim harder. It's just like, whatever that is, I don't know, so, but I agree. You can have many different goals. And I think a lot of times, and it seems like I run across this a lot. I'm telling people to kind of, let's see what you got on that bike, and then see if you can run after it. And then if you can't, then we know. But that's the game, right? Especially, I think now more and more at 70.3, it's kind of like morphed into the modern day Olympic for effort. And, back in the day, it was kind of, you could go blast an Olympic, but in 70.3, you want to be a little, you do want to be a little more careful, but a lot of people can handle it better for whatever reason these days. And I think it's definitely a great experimental zone because, I've run probably some of my best half marathons out of a 70.3 with a hard bike, standalone halves versus that, I just find that interesting, and sometimes if you're feeling really strong on the bike and in control of it, and pushing a little bit more than you think, there's all these things that go into it too, because certain people want to mash watts and certain cyclists know how to ride better and more efficiently and get better wattage too. So those are the things that I always try to get people to think about is how's your output compared to the effort you're putting into it? Are you taking full advantage of your cycling, or are you just hammering down all day long and just ripping your quads apart? I just think that there's so many little gray areas out there, and you got to flirt with them and understand them. And some days you may have it, and other days you might not have it right away, but maybe it comes to you at mile 40 and you're like, shit, now I can go and my legs feel good and I can even run well. Even that it's back to the thing about don't listen to your body, don't believe how you feel all the time. You got to work through. Like I can't imagine getting in a race and being from the first, 100, 200 meters thinking, I just don't have it today. I'm going to suck. I figure out a way to have it. You've been training a lot. I think you can work through that shit. And, sometimes that means go slow for a little bit longer. Let your body kind of come around and get warmed up. And same on the bike. If you don't have it right away, don't fold. Figure it out.
You brought up something that I actually also brought up like at the beginning of that Zoom, which was you like to have a couple different goals. And I love what you said about like, knowing who you are for that day. And that's why I always encourage athletes to I always kind of put on a note card, great, good, not very good, not very good, however you want to frame your less than stellar output for today. Because while Mike 5000 is Mike's best day and what he's capable of, again, race day, we are guaranteed nothing. It's just another training day. Your body doesn't get this special notice that it's race day, so you better be ready to go. You can do everything in your power. You can eat right, sleep right, fuel right, taper perfect, and still just not because the body is a mystery sometimes. So you need to have a plan for Mike 5000, but you also need to have a plan for Mike 4500 and Mike 4000, because that's very well who could show up that day. So I have like a swim great, a swim good, and then a not so great swim. And then the same thing for bike and for run. And what that does for me is it puts me in an objective space as I kind of look back through my training and look at what I think I'm capable of. And also understand what it does to me is say is I'm very capable of reaching all ends of this spectrum. I'm capable of swimming a 28-minute 70.3, but I'm also pretty capable of swimming a 35, right? That's a 7-minute difference. And that's not to say that you are going to, it's just recognizing that based on what you see and based on what you know about how you feel when you feel great, when you feel good, when you feel poor, that's a huge swing. But like you said, there's also no real time except for like the last 5K of a 70.3, the last 10K of a full, to be confident that what you are is actually who you are for the remainder of the day. Because I listen, I've seen plenty of athletes wake up as Mike 5000, swim like Mike 5000, and then all of a sudden bike like they're Mike 7000, and then end up running like they're Mike 1000. Because they married themselves to what they felt for the first 2 hours and totally disregarded the game plan and and the impact it was going to have for the rest of the day. And I've also seen athletes, and I've experienced it myself at Chattanooga, actually, where I felt like Robbie 1000 for the swim and the first 20, and then all of a sudden I felt like Robbie 10,000 the rest of the day. And the best thing I ever did in that race was my goal was like 220 watts for the bike, and then I just felt awful. In the first, I think 10, 15, 20 miles, I only averaged like 200, 205. This is just who I am for the day. And then for whatever reason, inexplicably, around mile 20 or whatever mile it was, my body just was like, oh, hey, it's time to race today. Let's do this. And I felt incredible. And I pushed it way high. So you have to have all these areas, because you could feel incredible for 1 minute, terrible for another, but you have to navigate that. And again, that's why there's just so much thinking that has to go on over the course of a race, and why you don't see that many athletes thinking their way through this stuff in training. They just hammer it out, and they put the trainer in an erg mode. They just do it automatic. There's no thinking. There's just doing. And, some sessions, that's fine. But when it comes to preparing for like your best race, you have to be able to judge and understand what that feels like. What effort feels like this duration of time and that I can hold without imploding. Right. Mm-hmm. And again, it also goes down to what is your goal for today? See if you can swim the distance, see if you can make it out, see if you can, again, nail your nutrition for the first time ever. A lot of people have no idea if their nutrition even works. And I said this yesterday, like a lot of times even like you see an athlete just blow it out of the water in a race with their with their fueling and their taper and their preparation and their race, you still can't say, you know what? This is the best way. Because you can also race well and PR and get through a race in spite of your missteps. And you can overcome in your pacing, you can overcome poor fueling, and it just happens to be a PR because you put that kind of work in and you happen to have the great conditions on that day. Let's say your execution was 70%, but your fitness and the way your body responded that day was 100. Well, there's a pretty good shot that is going to get a PR over an athlete who has, the opposite, right? Who executes perfectly, who's super patient, who's put training in, but for whatever reason, their body just doesn't respond that day. They just don't know why don't know why it happened. Inexplainable. And that's why, again, going into races, coming out of races, like you always have to be looking for opportunities to get better, but also not totally convinced that the way that you got it right is the best way. It's just insight into ways to get better, which is, obviously every triathlete anyway. They spend about 5 minutes in being pumped for a race and they're already on to the next one. How am I going to get better? What are we going to do? How can I go faster? Right? Where's and like that's the job, right? Is to find ways to do that. And so again, if you got races and you had races in April, you had races in May, or you have races in May and June, but your main goals are later in the year, you can't look at it as this is the defining race of the year. I'm throwing all my eggs in this one basket, because also a lot of times that means you make a lot of mistakes and you don't learn as much, because the goal is to always gain information. Always. The goal is to gain information. And I guess another analogy I could use is I'm generally not a fan of testing, because it's very hard. It's just one day. I'm much more likely to just take like your body of work, what you've been able to consistently do, than what you could do on that day for a short period of time. Because a lot of times athletes, they just can't pace it, or they get test taking anxiety, or they just don't feel it that day, or they have too high expectations, or their mind wants to quit. So we didn't learn anything. We didn't get new zones. We didn't learn if you raised your threshold. We didn't, learn anything about your durability. We didn't learn anything about lower heart rate. We just, reiterated the fact that you can't pace, you can't execute, and that's it. We learned nothing. And you see a lot of athletes this happen at races, that the way they approach it is in a way where you kind of scratch your head at the end, like, we did all this work and you made all these decisions that were counterintuitive and counterproductive to not just racing to your potential, but also gathering information for what really, really worked. Like, you totally bonk and shit the bed when it comes to your nutrition game. All we learned is that your fueling needs work, and that your body can handle this amount of power or this speed for this period of time with less than ideal calories. Right. And so like I had this conversation with an athlete who just raced, and they were talking about, because again, I think running always gets the bad rap. Right. And I don't believe, don't believe isn't the right word. I don't have the same views on cramping and bonking as I think most athletes and coaches do. All right. To me, cramping, and this has been proven, has nothing to do with like sodium. Like they didn't like study after study after study where you can have like a person cramping and they like rinse their mouth out with like a salty water, and all of a sudden their cramps are gone. Like, it's about overexertion. Same thing with bonking. To me, those two things are the train going off the tracks. It's the action, right? The cramp is the action, is the train going off the track. The bonk, right? When you have to walk and you can no longer go, the stomach cramps, throwing up, that is the train actually officially going off the tracks. Your problem is what got the train down that path, on that track, off course, started to teeter, finally off, could hang for a bit, and now it's off the track. Because every athlete wants to blame it on the race, but more than likely, you can't trace it back. You won't trace it back to the race. You'll trace it all the way back to training, because it's about, in my opinion, appropriate preparation takes out a lot of the opportunity to cramp, to bonk, to start walking. It's in your preparation. Yes, you have to execute well, but again, like this athlete had a really, really good day, and then they started to like have, stomach issues and stomach cramps and throwing up like the middle of the run, and they're like, I don't know what else. I'm like, listen, that was just the train going off there. We need to work our way all the way backwards, and we all like to, I think, because it's easy to use very simple things. Oh, it must have been the tainted mortal hydration from the bike course. That's got to be it. I'm like, you know how much shit your body probably takes in on a week-to-week basis you don't even know about, and your stomach can be like can totally withstand it? I'm pretty sure like a little bit of water from this is a lot easier in your body than like, the weekly trip to the Golden Corral, the Japanese buffet, or the Mexican restaurant. So give me a break on that. Like, it's not that simple. It's usually what took us down that track. So maybe it's how you train. Maybe you're dependent on a source you shouldn't be, training. Same thing with bonking, right? They did a lot of studies with this too, where you can feel like you need carbohydrates for more energy, and you do like a carbohydrate mouth rinse, and then you spit it out. You don't consume anything, but it's just that sensation. All of a sudden you can like bike harder for longer. And so again, like there's these things that happen during races where you got to work your way again all the way back through preparation, not just the race. Because everyone thinks it's only happened in a race, but a lot of times it's who you built, how you built yourself. And that's, what you came to race with on race day, which is what led you down that path to having, a great result, a good result, a poor result, or kind of like you're, walking with your hands on your hips at mile 7, wondering how we got here.
Yeah, I think that's a great point you bring up about exertion and things like that, and the cramp, because there's been times I've noticed this where maybe I haven't been in the greatest shape, and then you have to climb a really rough hill on a bike or something. My stomach just gets wacky, man. And I think that is something to do with, we're just a little bit out of our skin on some of these efforts. And over time, it just sort of, creates sort of a gut problem or whatever. I was thinking too, like what a great time a race is to sort of practice your toughness. And because there's so many times I think when you're out there that you got to find a way, and you got to be able to suck it up. And, I think back to like how I've been handling these last couple Ironman, and, you get off the bike and you're like, shit, this is the last thing I want to do. I do not want to run a marathon. I can't even do it. Or, you're all messed up, but you gotta, when you start walking, we've talked about it before, it's kind of over. If you give yourself that opportunity to just start walking, but it is and it isn't. I mean, it's, you can walk. I wish sometimes the last couple of years, for example, I wish I would have just kind of walked out of transition for a mile and really gave myself a chance to just sort of recover. But man, that's so hard, right? To think about doing something like that when, you're trying to catch a number and get back into things. But I do think those mini breaks can kind of recover you, or, restore sort of something somehow, even if it's just changing up the muscle strides and the things you're doing. But it's really hard to keep running and then stop and then get back at it and things like that. And I just think there's so many times throughout a race, we train and we nail our training plan the whole way through. And I think there's this illusion sometimes that I'm trained perfectly and this is going to feel easy. It's never going to feel easy. You have to dig deep multiple times during the day. And I think that's something you got to learn and practice. And it's sort of like, well, I'm just going to walk the rest of this way, or I'm going to walk to this state. Just when you say that, practice running. Just go. Try it again. Just keep trying to build that muscle, because to me, for a lot of people, that is and it's all relative too, because it could be just going super slow if you're running and you're a faster runner, but just pick it up a little bit and just work on the ability. This is an endurance sport. Are you going to endure? And you said it earlier, something, I can't remember exactly how you phrased it, but it was perfect. It was kind of like, you just have to keep going in a way, and you got to find sort of, just some kind of energy to keep up with your pacing or with your effort and just stuff like that. I mean, I know these are kind of like ethereal concepts or whatever, but I do think that they hit you continually. And it's just sort of like you got to kind of close your eyes and go inside and just find some energy to just keep going, because, a 10-minute pace can turn into the 18 or 19-minute pace real quick for a long time. And that's not what you want.
Mm. You gave a great example, and I think that's something you got to touch on. Is a lot of times, the outcome or the metric or the thing you're trying to investigate during a race, a lot of times shouldn't happen from anything below the chin. It should happen from the chin up.
Yeah.
What kind of decisions are you making? Can you do this? Can you not do this? I mean, for me specifically, the next time I get out and race, my only goal is to try to bury myself on the bike, because it's not a flaw, but it is a weakness of mine. I can in racing, I can bury myself on the swim, no problem. I can bury myself on the run and just hold it. I'm just capable of it. Just have it. On the bike, it's not there. I always kind of pull back, and I go, well, but yeah, and you might think, oh, well, and I think you can rationalize these ideas like, oh, well, you got the run left. I get that, but at the same point, I also tend to believe the same thing you do, is that I could probably do 20 more watts and still run the same. That's just who I am. I'm just that engine, right? I don't have 110% for 20 minutes, but I can go 90 for like 6 hours. And in training, I can do that. But if something happens on race day and it just, I have that governor. So I got that switch, right? I can't go over this not miles per hour, but I can't go over this. It's just not there. And I've got to recalibrate that. And so I'm going to, because I've tried even like going blind, I find myself going the exact same effort. Like I hit my ceiling and there is nothing above it. Sprint, Olympic, 70.3 full, I get the same watts. And so like I've calibrated myself to like have that as like my discomfort ceiling. This is as far as I'm willing to go. Maybe that's a better way to frame it. My ceiling of discomfort in race for cycling is a lot lower. Swim, it's high. Run, real high. Probably the highest in terms of pain. Cycling, low. And I don't know why, because I can also bury myself in training on the bike. So that's to me, that's again, that's a huge piece to unlock. If I can unlock that, if I can raise that ceiling of discomfort in race in the cycling portion, then what's that going to do the rest of my race? Because I also think it puts me in a more confident position to become more of the hunter instead of the hunted, which is kind of how I feel sometimes as a front pack swimmer. All that's really left is to get past. And then I got to kind of repass people if I can, excuse me, on the run. So that to me is another good example of like, do I cave too early? Like the example you gave about walking, it sounds tantalizing. It sure does sound fun. Boy, does it sound easy and comfortable. And damn, it doesn't feel good. And no way are you running again. I mean, it's once you do it, you are committed. You are totally, totally in. And it's like withstanding it. One more mile. I can go one more mile before I walk. And then I got this. I'm gonna go one more. It's again, even stuff like that is just. I think we really underestimate. And it's always something you've been really, really good at. Is, training your mind in a way, because it is our biggest weapon. Period. In every aspect of life, that is our biggest weapon, is our head and our mind, right? how we control our emotions, how we control our motivation, how we can handle adversity, how resilient we are. None of that is from the chin down. That is all from the chin up. Now, the chin down 100% responds to how you handle it from the chin up, right? Like you never see somebody bouncing on the green with going fast and a smile on their face. They're like, yeah, I'm just having a terrible day, but out here crushing it, baby. No, never happens. You see somebody like it's a trickle down effect from the brain to the heart to the body. And so when you get to these races, whether it's sprints, Olympics, fulls, marathons, whatever it is, it's like you gotta train your brain and train different levels of your confidence, or maybe your lack of confidence. And that, again, that is, to me, that is like there's so many untouched and undiscovered keys of that are going to unlock just total different levels of performance with athletes. And everyone's so obsessed with, the lactate testing and the Norwegian method and this new way of training. I'm like, if you ain't got your shit on lock from the head, then none of it matters. None of it. But again, like, and this is myself included, but I think looking in there is also the scariest place. Like it's very easy for us all to point out other people's problems, but the scariest place to look from pretty much all of us is to look in the mirror. And I think when we race and when we can do stuff like that, like we challenge ourselves to do something and be uncomfortable and maybe, not walk back on this and just commit and just do it. Just do it. When you get done, like you gain 10 times the confidence you would gain by just doing it and going through the motions and doing something you're good at, right? Like I think we all want to be proud of ourselves. We all want to achieve something, right? And it's about overcoming and learning a new skill, being proud. Like Hayden's been playing, he's back to baseball season, and he had a game a few weeks ago and he got hit the first time, and the next two times he struck out, and he was just super disappointed. He rarely strikes out, but it was just, he was swinging down anyway. And like he was affecting him, and he was up, bases juiced, last inning, I think we're down by 4. And I rarely ever talk to him, but I came and talked to him before that inning, before that happened. And I said, "You pretty frustrated?" He said, "Yeah, I'm frustrated." I said, "Why are you frustrated?" He said, I'm mad I'm missing the ball. And I said, "Well, you know what? None of those matter. You're going to have an opportunity this next inning to bat again. Make the most of it, do your best, and see what happens. And if you want to, take your frustration out on the ball instead of your mitt." Gets up there, doesn't hit a grand slam. He hits a very, pedestrian single. But he was proud of himself after that, not for the hit or the runs, because we still lost, but he was proud of himself for bouncing back from having been down on himself and having those strikeouts and then coming back later and ending on a good note. And I think that feeling, again, as a 7-year-old, those feelings for us never change even as adults. We still like to have those feelings of overcoming things, of being proud. Like when things come easy, it just doesn't matter. When things come easy, they just don't matter as much. I'll give one more Hayden example, then I'll shut up and we can get going. But, like we've gotten to the point with him where like we don't buy him anything. If he wants to buy something, then he can save his money and earn money and buy it himself. So in the past, like, if you give a kid something, like they don't really treat it with as much respect as they would if it was, their own. Kind of like giving a kid a car when they're 16 versus them earning it. Totally treated different ways. And he's probably gone through, I don't know, 2, 3, 4 pairs of sunglasses, all kinds of different sizes and shapes in the last like 2 years. Well, he's been saving up for these sunglasses on his own. And I take him to Shields, which is a dangerous place, by the way.
Never heard of it.
For all people, because there's just so many great things in there. So he's got his green light card and he's got his cash, and he picks out his sunglasses and I swear to God, I don't know if he's ever going to wear them. He keeps them in the cloth bag, and then inside the box that he bought it in. We head home from Shields. And we got to run to the grocery store, and I'm like, dude, it's like sunny. You're not going to wear your brand new sunglasses? And I can out of the car. He's like, no. I'm afraid they might get scratched.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's my boy, like that. But again, like going back, like there's just a huge difference in earning something, right, than being given something. And that's the same way with things that come easy, right? Things that come easy, we just don't seem to get as much out of it because we don't appreciate it. So when it comes to racing and training and the effort we put in, it's not always about the numbers. It's about what you gain. And yes, that can gain speed, that can gain new times or podiums or place or whatever. But the gain that we can get from being proud of ourselves, from overcoming something, from figuring out something new, or I'm stronger than I thought I am. Like, to me, like those are the ones that you can't replace, and we should put a lot more focus on those than we probably do.
Yeah, for sure, man. It's like I always say, if a race feels easy, then what? What's that mean?
Yeah, exactly. Right?
Racing shouldn't feel easy because you're leaving something on the table or whatever.
Yeah.
It's something I always forget. I swear to God, I do. It's like, I'm just going to cruise and roll through. And then you get out on that run and you're like, man, whew. You got to find a way.
Dude, it's tough.
But that's it. That's what it's about though, really, is finding ways and digging deeper. Right. And that's where we should find the joy, I think.
Digging deeper and finding joy. I like that.
All right, man. Well,
all right, let's call it a day.
Sounds good.
All right, man. We'll see you guys next week. As always, we love you. We appreciate you. If you need anything, as we said, kind of before we got started, go to the website, c26triathlon.com. It is our one-stop shop for all things coaching, camps, and community. If you need anything from Mike, he's available. Mike at c26triathlon.com. If you need anything from me specifically, Robbie at c26triathlon.com.
All right, my man. I'll catch you next week.
See you, dude.
All right, bye.